ZoomBobby.com. All right, guys. So super excited about doing this. I don't know if I've done this class here before, but I was doing in this lunch and learn over at Celebration Title Group. And I did this class a couple years back, and then I revamped it. So I'm super excited about doing this. So here's the deal. You know, a lot of people think that you have to do something way different in order to be in commercial. I created this class because I know it's something that that people want to learn about, but also because, you know, one time I was walking through the office and one of our new agents asked me a question, and she's like, hey, how much is the referral fee for a commercial deal? Is it the same as a residential deal? And I was like, you know, yeah, you know, you can do it for like 25% referral fee or whatever the case may be. You know, you obviously can be negotiated. I'm like, out of curiosity, are you the one receiving the deal or are you sending a deal out? She's like, no, I'm just going to send it to somebody else. And I'm like, how big is this deal? And she says, $1 million. And I was like, so wait, you're about to give somebody else a deal because because you decided you don't know about commercial? I was like, please stop right there. I was like, I'll help you through this deal. Like, what are you doing? Why are you giving away $1 million deals? And I don't want you guys doing that. I want you guys to start doing commercial. I want you guys to start looking for commercial business. It's out there for you. And guess what? We got this thing called the pandemic. I don't know if you noticed, you know, I've got this mask on right now. Commercial real estate is going to be highly affected in the next couple of years, if not more than that. Okay, how it's going to be affected, everybody's got their own opinions on that. But let's just be real. If you were a big box retailer, you were already on your way out. You're probably dead now. Okay, restaurant situations are going to change. Retail situations are going to change. Office situations are going to change. Right? A lot of people are finally realizing, oh wow, people can be just as productive. Matter of fact, more productive at home than they do coming into an office. So what's going to happen? I just heard the other day that in Gainesville, the entire State Farm had like an entire building and it just went dark. Like, hey, we don't need this office space anymore. That's thousands upon thousands of square feet of office space. Then now we're receiving no income. So I say all of that to say that there's going to be a lot of deals coming up, a lot of investors coming out of the water to snag up commercial deals. And I just want to teach you guys enough to be dangerous. Okay? Right? So Gil said one time, he's like, hey, look, I'm going to teach you enough to be dangerous. Not go be dangerous, right? And when we say that, we just simply mean, hey, look, do everything ethically, do everything right. But at the end of the day, go get a deal, go talk to people, okay? So as always, I like to start with a little bit of the mindset. So number one is, I just want to get you in the game, okay? This is not like a super crazy higher level class, but it's enough for you to get in the game, okay? You'll know way more after this class than you did before you started. So one thing I like to start with a little bit of kind of mindset, and this is something that revolutionized the way I look at life. You know, you guys know it, we're big Tony Robbins followers and big personal development people. Tony Robbins said one time at a seminar that I was at, he said, perfection is the lowest standard. And I was like, what does he mean by that? Because, you know, before I used to think being a perfectionist was like a great thing. Matter of fact, I've kind of prided myself on making sure everything's perfect. But when he said that, I was like, what does he mean by that? And basically what it means is perfection is not a real standard, right? It can't be achieved. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to try something. You're not going to be perfect and you're not going to try again, or you're going to scare the shit out of yourself and never try it at all. Okay. And that's why perfection is a low standard, right? Yes, we should be chasing outstanding. We should be chasing excellence, all these different things, but that's not perfection. Perfection is everything has to be perfectly lined up. And I can tell you that, like Gil said yesterday, actions get results, and even imperfect actions can get you a good result, okay? So I want you to be in that mindset, okay? Who actually wants to do, I'm assuming everybody in here, but who wants to be a commercial agent? Okay, Jose, what does it take to be a commercial agent?
Well, for me, besides with the income a little bit higher, maybe.
No, but what does it take? What does it take? Do you do commercial?
Back in my country.
Do you do commercial?
Yeah.
He's a commercial agent. That's all you got to do, okay? The difference between you and becoming a commercial agent is just simply a decision. Okay, there's no special license that you need. There's special trainings out there you can get, but you don't have to get another special license to do commercial. All you have to do is when somebody asks you, do you do commercial real estate? What's the answer?
Yes.
Yes, you do. You are now a commercial agent. Now, we're obviously not going to leave you out there in the cold. We're going to help you out. That's why we're doing these trainings and things like that. But I just want you to get in the habit of saying, yes, I can. And I have a team behind me who's going to help me with this, right? So after this, you'll at least be able to get things started, because that's all you really need. You know, most things in real estate don't have an immediate answer. They have to be researched. You know, we have an experienced commercial agent. If I go there and I just go, hey, I got a building, Vivian, how much can I sell it for? Can you just give me an answer? No, she can't. She has to research. She has to do it. I got a couple pieces of land referred to me by another agent in the office. She's like, I talked to the seller. She's like, oh, you know, I want to see how much I can sell for. I was like, I'd love to tell you, but I got to make some calls because I have no idea what can be done on this piece of land. I don't even know where it's at right now. You know, like she couldn't even give me an address because it was land. It was parcel numbers. So I'm taking the parcel numbers, looking up the pieces of land and figuring out what's this selling for, all these different things. So all I'm going to get you in is in the door. Ask the questions you need to ask and you'll have time to give them the right answers, okay? So let's talk about basic commercial terms, okay? So, you know, all there is in commercial a lot of times is just a different lingo. You know, I came from the mortgage industry and they have their own lingo. You know, they'll say things like LTV. And if you've never been in the mortgage business, you have no idea, or if you're in real estate, you have no idea what LTV means. And they'll just start shooting shit out and you're just like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what mortgage insurance is. I don't know what LTV is. And that's just like that in commercial. There's just a few terms that are out there that you might be like, man, I don't know this. But before you knew how to tie your shoes, you didn't know. And that's okay. You're going to learn these things. And you'll find that it's not that much different from residential in the sense of the general concepts of it. And I'll be showing you that throughout this presentation. And if you guys ever have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand. So this is what I believe. I said, with enough discipline, you can Google your way to success. So I'll give you a story. When I first started in commercial, which I didn't go through any special training besides deciding that, hey, I know enough about real estate. I got enough contacts in commercial. I got Google. I can figure this out, okay? Some guy was talking to me on the phone, and you know, you'll find sometimes that you get, I hate to like blanket anything, but you know, sometimes you get the kind of like the frat guy, you know, the guy who just been in commercial for a while and they talk to you, and then, you know, they purposely use like abbreviations rather than say words, you know. So I'm talking to him on the phone one day and he's like, yeah, man, you know, so, you know, after the DD, we'll do this and we'll do that. And I'm like talking on the phone. I'm like, after the DD? And I'm like, and I didn't say anything. I was just talking to him. I'm like, cool, because I had this great rapport with the guy. And I was like, cool. I hung up the phone and I was like, what the hell is DD? You know? And then I just Googled it and I was like, oh, that's what he was talking about. You know, next conversation, I'm saying DD, you know, because it's just a chapter. He's just a chapter ahead. And that's what I'm trying to explain to you guys. So what is DD? Okay, what is DD? Or, you know, you're not going to hear people do this a ton of times, but I just figure you might want to know. So anybody have a guess with it? Not Vivian. Anybody have a guess on what DD means? So they're not, huh? Due diligence. Very good. Due diligence. So the guy was saying due diligence. What does that mean? Well, it's basically due diligence. It's just like a residential inspection period. You get a chance to inspect the property to make sure that it's feasible, that it's going to work for what you're going to do. And they're going to ask for a certain amount of time of due diligence. And during that due diligence time, you can back out of the contract just like you would with an inspection period right to cancel in residential. Okay? If you look at the standard commercial contract in Transaction Desk, and it won't work for every transaction, but if it's a pretty simple transaction, the commercial contract works just fine, and it looks very similar to the as-is residential contract. All they did was change a few terms. But this is your due diligence period, right? Sometimes they call it a feasibility period, okay? They're just trying to see if the property is gonna work, you know, and they're gonna do some different things during that time. It's not just like, you know, a home inspection. They're gonna inspect the property for different things, right? They're gonna inspect the property. They might even inspect the soil during that time, right? Depending, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Okay, so that's all you gotta know. Due diligence, it'll be right there on the contract. It'll be a certain amount of days that you'll ask for to review the property, to inspect the property, to make sure the property works for you. And it varies. It's not just like, you know, in residential, it's like 10 days is pretty standard. With this, there's sometimes they'll ask you for a due diligence period of 6 months, 9 months. Now, I will never let them get away most of the time with something like that, but 30 days is not unusual, 60 days is not unusual, 90 days is not unusual. What do you say, Vivian? As far as, I mean, it just depends on the property, right? Right, yeah, you're very rarely gonna get a 10-day inspection period. I mean, you're gonna minimum most likely get a 30-day and so on and so forth, because sometimes they have to go to the county, they have to go to the city, they have to make sure that it's, that the thing that they're gonna build on this piece of property is gonna work, right? Because I'm not gonna give you this huge $25,000, $50,000, $100,000 deposit, and I don't even know if I can build the building that I wanna build on that, right? So that takes a little bit of time, okay? So you'll hear this term, owner-user, okay? Owner-user. Anybody wanna take a guess on what that is? No, Josh? No, an owner-user. There you go. There you go. Yeah, you're right. It is self-explanatory. But you're the only one guessed it, right? So it means someone is purchasing the property, put their own business in it. Think of it like somebody buying as their primary residence versus an investment, right? So that matters, right? If somebody says, I want to buy a commercial property, you need to ask them what for. You know, are they buying a commercial property as an investment, or are you an owner-user? Are you looking to put your business in this property? Okay, does that make sense? Just like if you were right, hey, I want to buy a piece of residential real estate. For what? Are you going to live in it? Or are you going to use it as an investment? These are all the questions you would ask residential, but just in commercial terms. Okay, so nothing different. All the same things apply. Okay, next term I want you to be familiar with is LOI. You'll hear this term a lot, LOI, and they will use this abbreviation. Mavo, what's LOI? Letter of intent, okay? A letter of intent. So you'll hear this a lot, and hey, just send over the LOI, or whatever the case means, send me an LOI. Okay, so this is a letter of intent. It's non-binding. It's basically a letter that discusses the main terms of what we're gonna buy. So before we write up a big old contract, before we do anything else, here's this letter stating the basic terms of what we want, right? And it could be for a lease, it could be for a purchase. And I'll say, here's the price we want to pay, here's the deposit we want to put down, here's the due diligence period we would like, you know, all the main points. So before we get into this big contractual situation, let's just agree on the base terms, because if we can't agree on this, then why move forward, basically, okay? Now, there's templates for letters of intent, so you can, they're not that tough, they're kind of simple, but just know that's not binding. Even if they sign it, doesn't mean that it's a contract, right? It's just a general agreement, hey, we're on the same page here. So now we can move forward with a contract, okay? And it precedes a purchase contract and a lease, but not always, you know? So sometimes I don't go through this step. Like if it's a pretty simple commercial transaction, it doesn't take that long to write up a standard commercial contract. Like I said, in transaction desk, there's a standard one. It takes you just as long as it would take you to write an as is. So sometimes I just skip this part. Here's the contract, here's an offer. Like we don't have to play this game just for that long. But feel it out, you know, if you're dealing with an agent that's the way they want to work, then maybe they do that. Okay, cap rate. Cap rate is just gonna be used a ton, and we're gonna go over a lot of little, so if you don't like math, you might not like this class. No, I'll make sure you like it. But cap rate, we're gonna do a couple of these calculations today so you can kind of get a sense of what cap rate is, okay? So, pick on somebody. Erica. Cap rate, what is it?
The rate like cap.
The rate like cap? Okay, okay. NOI divided by sales, but what is it in general? Return on investment. That's it, right? That's all it is, guys. They're just different terms for things you know about. What's my return going to be on this property? So NOI divided by sales, but what is it in general? that mean? Why am I echoing?
Return on investment. That's it, right? Well, what?
Biagio's being loud. Biagio, mute yourself. So cap rate is essentially the same as return on investment, right? So what's the return that they want on the property? So basically, how much percentage return is the investor going to get per year based on what he spent on the property? Okay. So if Jonathan, if I buy a property for $100,000 and it produces me a net income of $10,000 a year, so I paid $100,000 and it gets me a net income of $10,000 a year, what's my cap rate? What's my interest percent return? 10%. 10%. That's all this is. All it's saying is I paid this much, I invested this much into the property, okay? And what's it gonna get me back in net income every year, okay? This is no different than doing this. You can do this for residential rentals. It's the same thing, cap rate or return on investment. You ask a residential rental investor, hey, what kind of return do you want? I like to have an 8% return, a 10% return. It's cap rate, that's what he's saying. I want a cap rate of 10%, right? If I spend $100,000, I expect to get a net income of $10,000 per year if I'm gonna get a 10 cap or a 10% return, okay? That's all that means. And here's the equation. It's net income, net operating income over the purchase price. So net operating income divided by purchase price. I'll make it easy for you guys. I want you to write this down, okay? I want you to write this down because we're gonna do a few problems during this class, and I want you to have this formula with you, okay? So the traditional formula, cap rate equals net operating income divided by the purchase price, okay? But this is the same equation, and what I like about it, it allows you to solve, if you write this down, right, it allows you to solve for whatever you put your hand over, right? So, in other words, if I need to figure out what the net income, the I is the income, so if I need to figure out the net income of a property, I cover this up, and here's my formula. Rate times value, or rate times purchase price, okay? Does that make sense? If I want to find out the value of a property, I can take the net operating income and divide it by the cap rate, and I'll get the value, I'll get the price, okay? Because I can work this equation backwards. Why would you want to do that? So what if you, what if you had the price of a property and they told you what the cap rate was and you needed to know how much income does that equal to? Well, there you go. You just multiply these two and you get the income, okay? But what if there's something for sale and you know the value and you know that you want to get a certain cap rate from that property. You want to know, what would I pay for this property? So you would take the income and divide it by the cap rate. And so in other words, an investor says, I want to pay an 8 cap for this. So you know the income, you divide the income by the cap rate, and then you get what you would pay for the property if it was an 8 cap. So you can work this, we'll go through a couple of examples in this, but basically you can work this equation backwards with that formula. I want you to keep that formula, okay? More commercial terms, phase 1 and phase 2 environmentals. These are actually studies done on the actual land, right? And these are environmental studies. So phase 1 is kind of a non-intrusive basic analysis of the property for contamination. It usually costs $3,000 to $4,000, but depending on the size of the property. So what kind of properties would you probably want to do some environmentals on? Hospitals? Hospitals? Potentially, if there was a hospital for sale, they have chemicals there. What else? Gas company?
Gas stations.
Gas station? Okay. Gas station. What else?
Farms, maybe.
Maybe. But automotive, you're going to find this a lot in gas stations, automotive, places who might dump things like oil out back. Even restaurants sometimes with grease traps and things like that. They have a lot of chemicals that so you don't want to buy a property like that and find out that it's contaminated. And I'll give you some real life examples of deals that I've done in this presentation. You don't want to find out it's contaminated. And then guess what? If you own it now, it's your freaking problem. That's the way it works. Doesn't matter. The government don't care if you didn't do an environmental. Oh, you didn't do it? Okay, that's cool. Well, this is going to take $300,000 per year for you to clean this up for the next 6 years. Congratulations. Can't do it, right? Phase 2 environmental is more intrusive. So usually what happens is somebody will do a phase 1. And if this phase 1 comes back okay, and they say, hey, look, we looked at the history of the property, we looked around, we don't think you have anything to worry about, then you might or might not order a phase 2 environmental. But if you find out that, hey, you know what, this was an old gas station before, there's some gas tanks still under here that they buried, okay, you probably don't want to buy that property without doing a phase 2 environmental study. Because once again, if there's leaks in that gas tank, if there's anything under that ground, okay, it's going to be your problem. Okay, so they cost a little bit more, but they're worth doing if you're buying a property with those things. Leasing, okay, so I won't spend too much time on that, but leasing is just like renting, right? So you've got buyers and you've got renters, right? So leasing, with leasing, LOIs are still used, but not always. Landlord often provides the lease, right? So it depends on the property, but like for instance, you know, if you're doing a lease on a major shopping center, right, and there's like a little retail space in there, you know, you're probably not going to draw up that lease. You know, those people spent a lot of money with lawyers to draw up a lease that's going to cover their ass as far as that lease. On smaller spaces, maybe standalone spaces, maybe cheaper properties, you might have to get a lawyer involved to write up a lease. Okay, so be prepared with a good real estate lawyer when you're doing commercial in case you need them, right? Because I don't want you guys writing up leases. Okay, we don't want to get into that game. That's a lawyer deal. Okay. Just so you know, monthly rents are usually talked about in price per square foot. So when they talk about it, you're going to hear a lot of this. They're like, you want to rent this space, and you'll ask them, what's the lease rate? And they'll say $25 a square foot. You know, $19 a square foot. That's what they'll say. And they talk about it that way. And what that means is they usually do that. It's a price per square foot per year. Sometimes they do it per month, but I'll give you an example in a second. So, and just so you know, people always ask me, how do you get paid on a lease? Like, how do you get paid? So usually you get paid a percentage of the monthly rent for the base term of the lease. So for instance, if you go in there and you sign a 5-year lease, okay? And the lease amount every single month is $5,000 a month, okay? So 5 years is how many months? How many months? 60 months? 60 months, okay? So do 60 times 5,000, okay? 60 times 5,000. Anybody got that? 300, is that 300,000? 300? 300 grand. So you're gonna get paid, let's say 3%. 3% is pretty standard. What do you do a lot of leases, Vivian? What do you usually get paid on the base term percentage wise? 3%. So very typical of the real estate. Yeah, oftentimes they don't put that percentage on the listing. You're gonna have to talk to the person who's actually listing that property to find that out. So just like a house, right? So basically that was $5,000 a month for 60 months. That's the base term of the lease. And when I say base term, what I mean is a lot of leases have renewals. So they might not pay you on the renewal, right? So it could be a 5-year lease with 2 potential renewals at 5 years. So it could be potential 15-year lease, but they're not going to pay you on the 15 years. They're going to pay you on the first 5 years. Does that make sense? Okay. So it's usually around 3%. So hey, that's not bad. 5-year lease, $5,000 a month. That's 300 grand. You just sold a $300,000 property essentially. You're going to get 3%, right? So $9,000 is going to be the commission. Okay. Does that make sense? Not too crazy. Okay. So here's what a lot of these listings will look like. So I'll give you an example. Okay. So here's the deal. I'm going to give you a math problem right now. Okay, so here's the way it's usually seen when it's listed. You see here's $23 a square foot per year. If you ever see dollars a square foot at like $1 or $2, they sometimes do it per month. Okay, so You take this number, you multiply it by this number. Somebody do that for me. 80,500. Everybody agree? Do you think that's the monthly rent? Probably not, right? Okay, so what's the monthly rent? 6,708?
Yeah.
There you go. Now you know how to calculate it, right? So they speak about it in year, you multiply it by the square footage, you got 80,000. That's $80,000 a year in income. So we're gonna do this calculation again when we're figuring out cap rate, right? We're gonna figure out what kind of income they get. Well, they get $80,000 a year in income that landlord does. But in this case, you're gonna be working with a tenant. They're gonna wanna know, what am I paying every month? You're gonna pay $6,700 a month.
And this is the part when you're talking about what a realtor would get from doing a leasing deal.
Typically around 3%, just like you would on a residential sale, 3% on the base term of the lease. So in this particular case, okay, $6,700 a month, okay? So let's say it's a 5-year lease, okay? So that's 60 months. Just say 60 months. Take 6,700, multiply by 60 months. 402 what? 402,000? Okay. Now take 3% of that. 12,000.
Lease.
It's not bad.
Brainer.
It's not bad. So does it matter how long the term is? Yeah. The longer the term is, the more money you make.
So it should be monthly, Sir Bob? You are getting the commission monthly or?
No, they'll pay you up front. Most of the time. Sometimes they'll pay you at the signing of the lease, and then at least commencement, they might break it up. But most of the time, you get paid up front.
The whole amount.
Yeah. So you'll get paid that $12,000. That's not a bad lease.
That's good.
That's why if you get somebody who tells you, hey, I need to lease 10,000 square feet, and I'm looking for a 10-year lease, you should get excited. There's a big potential commission there. Because we're talking about $6,700 here. What if it's $15,000 a month they're paying? What if it's $10,000 a month? What if it's a 10-year lease? What if it's 120 months times?
Just how much you're paying per month times how many months they've been.
Yep, and then you take
And then
3% of that. Okay, cool. Okay, so, and now you guys know how to calculate this, right? So we'll go back to that. We'll do some more calculations. Okay, let's talk about the 3 ends. What does this mean, Maba? These 3 ends right here. You know? Who knows? Besides Vivian.
Google it, Google it.
Yeah, Google it. There you go.
Google it.
Right answer, Jose. Google it. Right? Because if you put those 3 ends in there, you're going to get the answer.
Is the lease?
What they call this is, you'll see this, right? So let me see if it was in the previous example. Sometimes they'll put in here, they'll put the 3 ends in here. And what it means is it's a triple net lease. Okay? They call that a triple net lease. Okay? You'll hear this a lot. Okay? They call it a triple net lease. What do they mean? The triple nets, the 3 ends, it's net, net, net. Meaning that the person who is leasing that property is responsible for their portion of the taxes, insurance, and CAM is common area maintenance.
That's a public, right?
Public? Most likely if you, I mean, this can be done by anybody. I mean, if you're a landlord and you own a building, you decide what kind of lease you want to put out there, right? If I own a little office building, I said I'm only accepting triple net leases, right? Like, you're going to pay me, and usually what happens is that they'll give you the rate. They'll say, okay, it's going to be $20 a square foot. But there's going to be $4 a square foot extra for triple net fees. Why is that great for a landlord? You're paying all my freaking expenses. I'm actually clearing $20 a square foot, and all the other expenses I have on that property, keeping the property maintained, the taxes, the insurance, by the way, you're going to pay for that too. So really, you're leasing that at $24 a square foot. If you want to know the real numbers, right, for your tenant. So triple net is very, very common. Matter of fact, I got a commercial investor I work with that is a buddy of mine, and he's doing what he calls absolute triple nets because he owns a ton of property. He does absolute triple net. You know what that means? That means don't even call me if something happens to the building. It's your freaking problem. Because usually even in a triple net, the landlord will still have some things they're going to take care of. What if the AC goes out? Landlord's supposed to take care of that. What if certain things happen? No, absolute triple net, just don't call me. Here's what you pay. Something breaks, you fix it. You're going to pay my taxes, insurance, common aid. And you know what? People do it.
Residential.
Well, I think you could do that actually. So triple net. So the other things you'll see lease wise will things like gross lease or a full service lease, and this is the opposite of that. This is actually everything's kind of included in the price, right? And these things are, in other words, you don't pay these extra things. It's like what you pay is what you pay. There's no extra charges, and sometimes they even include things like power and things like that in the lease. You'll find out when you talk to the people. But if it says gross lease or full service lease, you'll see that a lot too in these co-working spaces, right? So in these co-working spaces, you just pay one fee, and you don't pay power, you don't pay anything extra. You just go in there; it's full service, right? It's already set up. Sometimes it's even furnished for you, right? So, but they also have things like modified gross lease. So like I said, sometimes they'll say it's a modified gross lease. So it means that it's all inclusive except for these things you'll pay on your own. So they might say, hey, it's a modified gross lease. Everything's taken care of except for janitorial. You're going to pay that on your own. You're going to make sure that the office stays calm. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, but triple net, pretty common.
Yeah, so when you have build out facility, which one do they typically use?
It doesn't really depend on the type of lease. It's just on the negotiation. So you could do a triple net lease and negotiate with the landlord that he's going to give you 20,000, which is a good term that you should know. You'll hear the term TI a lot. TI, which is tenant improvement. Okay, so what that means is if I lease a place, right? Let's say I go into a public shopping center. Okay, the landlord that owns that huge shopping center might understand that, that space before was a salon and now it has to be a real estate office. So you might ask that landlord for, hey, I'd like to request $20,000 to remodel this space, right? And a lot of landlords will do that, especially the bigger landlords. Maybe on the smaller deals, you probably won't get any TI at all. It's going to be up to you, okay? But the type of lease doesn't necessarily dictate that. It's really just what you negotiate and who you're talking to, okay? Do you agree with that, Vivian, pretty much? Okay. I'm always going to refer to Vivian since she's done a ton of commercial. You're going to hear this term a lot. So that extra term I gave you guys with TI, which is tenant improvement, right? Value add. You'll hear this a lot. Is it a value add property? And all that value add means is, hey, if I buy this property, is there potential for me to get more income out of it or gain more equity? So this would be the equivalent of me buying a beat up residential property. I'm buying it at a low price, right? Because I believe that if I put some money into this property, I'll gain more equity, right? I'm going to gain more value. That's a value add. That's a value add deal. That's a value add property. In commercial, you'll hear that a lot. A property has potential to bring in more income or gain more equity. This can be in the form of vacant space that can be leased. So what if I buy a strip center and half the spaces are vacant? Okay, well, that's a value add property because I can buy that based on the income it's getting today. But I know that once I go in there, fix it up, make it look nicer, I'm going to lease out 3 more spaces and my income might double. That's a value add opportunity. Okay. This can be in the form of physically improving the property in order to charge more in rent. So my buddy works for a big commercial company. They bought that shopping center on the corner of Lee Road and Mills that has the Flemings on the out parcel. It used to be like a movie theater there and a Kmart. They took that all over. Well, part of the value add is that place looked run down. They just went in there, put the lipstick on the pig, right? They put a nice new facade. They got some new tenants in there. And guess what? They sold the property and made a profit, right? Or you can be in a form of additional development potential. So you might buy something and say, hey, look, there's another parcel out here. Hey, look, I'm selling you this shopping center, but just so you know, there's 3 out parcels here where you could put another development, another bank, a little hotel on the corner of your property, things like that. And this can also be in the form of securing a more long-term tenant, right? So I'll give you an example of this. So my buddy has a great connection with CVS's, right? The people who kind of work on disposing of CVS properties that CVSs are in, okay? So he tells this guy, he says, let me know when these CVSs are within 3 years of their lease expiring, okay? Why does he do that? Well, he wants to see if he can buy those properties at below market because it's less attractive as an investor buyer. For instance, let's take a residential property. And you're looking to purely buy a rental, and you're buying this rental because of the return that it gives you, right? So you're buying this rental, it's producing you $1,000 a month, that's why you're buying it. But then you find out in the process that the renter is actually moving out in a month. So right now it's getting $1,000 a month, but in a month from now, they're gonna be vacating that property, which means I gotta go find a new tenant and hope that I can get the same rents or more, okay? That makes it less attractive for a pure investor. It's the same with commercial. If I'm buying a property and you tell me that there's a CVS leasing that property and there's 10 years left on their lease with a guaranteed national credit tenant like CVS, which is a very credible tenant, that ain't Joe Schmo, right? You're pretty sure CVS is gonna pay their bill. And it's got 10 years left on that lease. That property is more valuable to me as a commercial investor. But if you tell me that they're gonna be out of this lease in 3 years, the price is gonna drop on that property because it just doesn't seem a safe enough investment. So my buddy's actually having these guys tell him, hey, these guys only have 3 years left in the lease. You can pick this up at a cheaper price. But then he goes to CVS and negotiates behind the scenes to get them to extend, to renew their lease. And if in the what period, the DD period, the what? The due diligence period, you know what he uses the due diligence period for? Is to renegotiate the lease with CVS. So he's gonna get it at a lower price because it's, you know, that lease is gonna expire in 3 years. Then he calls up CVS and says, hey, are you willing to renew for another 15 years? You are? Fantastic. And he does it all during the due diligence period so he can get his deposit back if they say no. You guys are you guys on?
It's like the building owner that owns the CVS building.
Yeah, there's a separate, there's usually, a lot of these people you see like CVS don't own the property. They just lease it for a shit ton of time.
And that's, I do see a lot of like CVS's that were CVS's before. Are they like franchised?
I'm not sure. CVS, is that a franchise or no? No, I think it's just national.
Because even Wawa does it too. Wawa will lease, some of them will lease the land. So, I mean, they'll try to buy it, but they'll lease it.
Yeah, just like what do you do with the CVS building after?
Yeah.
Flip it. It's like a house. You just turn it back.
They'll flip it. Exactly right.
Yeah.
So if I buy it down here because that lease is expiring, I find out during my due diligence, I can get them to sign in on a 15-year lease. I close on that property at the low price, and now I go out there and market it to an investor and say, look, I got a 15-year lease on this thing. You got a secure investment that's going to produce you 6% every single year, pretty much locked in because they're a national credit tenant. There's a lot of people with a lot of money that just want to park their money in a place that's going to give them a secure investment. They'll take a little bit less return. All depends how much money you got. Like right now, we're all young. We're trying to get money, right? We want to get those 10% returns. If you got $1 billion, hey, 6% is fine as long as it doesn't get fucked up. And this is a pretty safe investment. If I got a 15-year lease with CVS, who's a national credit tenant, right? It ain't Joe Schmo's auto shop. It's CVS, right? So you guys are starting to get the commercial investor mindset now. You're starting to understand how these people play the game, okay? So let me talk to you about my first land deal. So I'm gonna start just getting into real deals now. This is deals that I've done, and I'm gonna tell you how I got the deal, how it happened. So you guys can see that this doesn't have to be a complicated thing. I don't have a special magic or anything like that. You know how I got this freaking deal? Before I started here at this brokerage back when we were Exit Realty, I was wholesaling, which is what Maeve and Julie Mar do, right? So I got this wholesale deal. And because I was a new wholesaler, I thought that I could flip this thing pretty quickly, but it was a piece of land. So pro tip, land takes longer because your buying pool is a lot. I'm looking for a developer builder, which is a little smaller pool of people. It ain't like selling a residential home. Wholesaling a residential, no problem. I got buyers everywhere. Piece of land, I got to find a very specific person. So anyway, I put a contract on this property, was going to wholesale it, realized that I could not do it in the amount of time that I had. So I convinced the owners to let me list it traditional. And that's how I got my first commercial land deal. Okay. So I kind of stumbled into it. I'm like, oh shit, I got a commercial deal now. Okay. So let me ask you guys, what's important about selling land? Tell me what do I need to know in order to know the value of this property?
Okay, zoning.
Location,
Zoning. How about the zoning?
zoning. Okay. What else?
Whether it's like connected to a street or a line.
Connected to the street in one way.
If you have electric power.
Electric, is power running to it? Is sewer running to it? Is it septic? What do we got? What do we got there? Okay, so this is the first thing you're going to want to find out. When somebody says, I got a piece of land, we're like, hey, I can't tell you anything unless I do some research. Okay, so the first question you got to ask, what can be done on this land? Okay, my aunt and uncle have 12 acres right now off a street called Poncan Road in Apopka. 12 acres, and that's beautiful. But you know what? It's zoned agricultural right now. What does that mean? On those 12 acres, all I can do is build one house. Well, right now, as it stands, that's not a very valuable property for somebody. Who the fuck needs 12 acres for one house, right? Now, would it be more valuable if I could get 4 houses per acre? Okay, so this is the way you have to start thinking. That would be way more valuable to a builder developer. Right now, as it stands, who am I going to sell that to? Somebody who just wants to have a shit ton of land, but nobody's going to pay millions of dollars for that. They're going to pay for the lot, just like they would for a residential home. So you're absolutely right, Sir Jose. What is it zoned for? I need to know what it's zoned for. I called the city or county to find out about zoning. So I'm going to call the city or county. I got like I said, I got a deal right now. I've looked it up, and some of the parcels literally say wasteland on the zoning, and then some of them say residential. And I'm going to have to call them and say, what does it actually mean? You know, and you're going to talk to the city or the county wherever the property is located. Don't worry if you call the city and it's not in the city, they'll tell you. Call the county, here's a number. It's okay, just make the call, okay? Let's find out what it's about. Ask the city or county about the future land use. This is important because, okay, so mine's zoned agricultural right now, but you know, cities don't plan day by day. Cities plan years and years in the future, and they usually have a future land use for that property. In other words, they have the intention of zoning this property differently at some point. So I like to ask them, what is the future land use of this property? Because if you tell me, hey, this is actually, you know, our future land use for this is commercial mixed use. Okay, so it's agricultural right now, but it's going to be turned into a commercial property that you can build a development on if I can get it rezoned. And all that means is, doesn't mean automatically you're allowed to do it. What it means is if I go to the city or county and make a pitch to switch the zoning, I'm in way better position knowing that they're already moving towards that way, right? So if I go to the city and their future land use is commercial, and I go pitch a commercial development and tell them that I want to switch the zoning, I'm going to be in way better position because I'm going with the stream. That's what they want to turn it into anyway. But if it's not, then I'm going to have a tougher time, and this property becomes a little bit less valuable to a potential buyer, right? If they don't plan on doing anything commercial there for the next 10 years or whatever, I mean, I could still try, but they might ask you for a longer due diligence period to figure that out, okay? If it's residential, find out how many units per acre are allowed. So the more units, the more money. There's a big difference between me saying, hey, you can build 10 townhomes here, or you can build a 100-unit apartment complex. Big difference. Big difference in money, okay? So here's what happened. So I got this property, right? This is actually in Longwood, very close to the Sunrail station in Longwood, right? So the first thing you want to do is you need to know the area. You need to know what's in, because that's actually one of the biggest things. Remember you said location, absolutely correct. What's this buy, right? What's important for, in other words, you know, what could be here? What could be allowed here? What's the value of things here? In this particular situation, this is a piece of residential land in a residential area. It's not one of those traditional neighborhoods. There's no HOA there. But what are the chances I'm going to be able to put a gas station on this corner when there's houses all around? Probably 0 to none. It's residential property, right? So in this particular case, I'm trying to find out what can be done on this land. And I start driving around. So I start driving around to see what's going on out there, and I end up finding that Miranda Homes has built 20 homes a few blocks up. And I'm like, wait a minute. So I got brand new construction going on real close to me. So why is this important?
Value. The value of
The value, right? So this will give me a good indicator, right? If I build a brand new construction home, what they're going to be worth. What else? What? How can I leverage this?
Ask them to build it. Buy it.
That's it. That was my first stop. My first stop was like, oh, hey Miranda, I just want to let you know I got this land like 2 blocks from you. They're already building here. Would you like to build over here? That's how you should be thinking. Let's get creative with this. What can I do with this? Now, in this case, they didn't buy it, but it was a good start. I got a good sense of value from it. And one way to kind of get value for land too when it comes to residential is, just so you know, a builder usually won't pay more than 10 to 15% of what the final value of the property will be. Does that make sense? So in other words, if you build a $300,000 property, at the end it's going to be worth 300 grand. You know, builders probably not going to want to pay more than $30,000 a lot. Maybe a little bit more, but just keep that as a rule of thumb. This is not a hard and fast rule, but this is a good formula for you to understand. Because if you're dealing with a residential lot, okay, this is a quick calculation you can do to see, hey, well, how much is this land going to be worth? So in other words, when you guys find one of those single residential lots in a neighborhood and there's plenty of sales in the neighborhood, then just whatever things are selling for that are updated and new, or make adjustments for updated and new, take 10 to 15% of that, and you know that probably no builder is going to pay much more than that. Okay? This is land. They still have to dump a shit ton of money into it. They got to make a profit. It's not a single family. They have to build something. They have to spend money. So this is the sign that I designed. I created one of those big fuck off signs and I put it up in the front. And this is what I told them. I said, ready for development, 8 single family, 10 townhomes. I remember this because, you know, this was the first commercial sign I ever did. And I showed it to Gil, like I showed him the design of it, and he shit all over it. He was like, this is terrible, started crossing shit out. So this is actually the final product that we all agreed on this one. So anyway, it was just a good way to show them how the property sat, where the lots were, and what they could do. Funny enough, I ended up getting a deal because just from this sign. So I tell you guys, deals have babies, right? Deals get deals. This is why I tell you deals over everything. Go get a deal, because deals will get you deals. When you put a big sign up in front of the deal, guess what? You just get calls regardless, whether they can buy or not. Guess what? I got a call from a lady who actually misinterpreted this sign, thinking that I was building townhomes there. And she wanted to see, or single families, and she wanted to see how much they were. And I was like, oh, no, no, no. I'm not building them. I'm just selling the land, but I can help. Guess what? I sold her a house. And not only sold her his house, I also sold her house. Just from this sign. Just from having a deal. Just from having my name on a deal. Okay? Pro tip, sewer hookup is important. This ended up being an issue here. I talked to Miranda. They had to run all sorts of sewer piping there. I had a contractor. By the way, I didn't know all this stuff when I was doing it. I was learning it on the fly. I was calling the city up and learning things. I took a contractor out there who thought it was interesting. And I drove around with this guy and he explained to me the things I needed to look for and asked me, hey, where's the nearest sewer hookup? Because that's important, because if I have to run some pipe a mile up the street, it's going to cost a builder a shit ton rather than if the sewer hookup is already there and I can just plug it right on the street. It's a big deal. Here's another piece of land that I sold, okay? You guys might be familiar with this area. This is 1792 and 434, okay? This piece of land here I sold, I think, last year. And I sold it for $650,000, okay? And they're planning on building 22 townhomes there, okay? How did I get this? Same thing. It was through a wholesale deal. Some guy's trying to sell it on his own, blah, blah, blah. And I told him, hey, you're not going to get a buyer for this. Like, just talking to people. Like, this is a very specific buyer. You need to find developers. Let me help you and let me list it, okay? And it was a total battle, by the way. This was, I probably worked with this property for over a year and a half probably, and because the guy was overpricing it, changed his price like 4 or 5 times, to the point where I just told him at one point, you're not listening to me. I'm done with this. Go find somebody else to do it. But you know, sometimes when you do the takeaway close, it comes back to you. And 2 weeks later, one of the owners called me up and said, hey, we're going to do what you said.
Well, what's his pricing it on?
At one point as high as 925. It was just a difficult property. Why? Because we still didn't know what could be done on it. Okay, so this is another pro tip. If somebody's got land becomes more valuable if you've already done the homework and you've already got plans approved, right? So let's say you own this piece of land and you said, hey, I'm gonna spend $20,000, $40,000 to get the zoning that we need to get it at, get the plans approved by the city or the county, and now I can market this as a development already done. You have all the entitlements. You don't have to go through the hoops. You can absolutely build 22 townhomes here. Here's my approval from the city or county, and this can be done. Well, that becomes way more valuable to a developer, right? I'll pay a little bit extra so I don't have to wonder or go through the time and cost and effort, okay? But in my case, it wasn't that, okay? I got lucky because sewer hookup was a problem here, okay? But look, there was a townhome development right next to it, which helps, right? So if you're trying to get the zone for a townhome development, it helps that they're one next door because it's not that far-fetched that they would let them do townhomes here, okay? Now the good thing was is that because this is a big neighborhood, they had already piped in sewer. So they just have to go over here and convince the association to let them hook up or pay them some money to let them hook up. But it was way better than them having to run the sewer all the way down 434 and around the corner, because that would have cost them a couple $100,000 to do. So that's the difference, right? That's the difference it makes in having things like that. So let's talk about this deal. I don't know if you guys recognize where this is, but we're down here somewhere. And I sold this property here on this corner. You guys know what corner this is? What road this is? That looks like Colonial Orange, right? That's what it is. You guys ever driven by that little place? This is actually a residence Marriott, but Camden, this is Camden. Yeah, that's Camden. Over here is like the Sevens and Nora and all that stuff that's there right now. So I sold this little property right here, okay? So I'm just gonna show you what it looks like from the aerials and stuff like that, okay? Just so you can get a feel for it when you're selling this property. This is what it looks like from the aerial. Okay, you guys have driven past this a million times, never noticed. It actually was a historic little sandwich shop. Been here since the 70s. Okay, it used to be called Mama B's. Okay, does anybody know what's there now?
I don't remember. I remember the Chinese right across from.
Okay, so this is the deal here. So let's do a little cap rate exercise on this one. Okay. Okay, well, before I get there, I want you to tell me when you're looking at this, what are the pluses and the minuses of this property? Like, what are some things that I might want to think about when I'm selling this property?
Corner. It's a corner lot.
It's a corner lot. That's very important, right? You get something on a hard corner, that's what they call that, a hard corner, okay? And you're on a pretty major road. This is the highest traffic corner in downtown LA. Positive, especially if you're a retail business, right? Because that's a retail space. Okay, what else? What else are you looking at? What else could be good or bad about this?
Check out the Sunday shop, right? If they're gonna build it.
They're gonna have to renovate, right? They're gonna have to put some money into the property, okay?
How about the parking requirements?
Parking. Parking's an issue, right? Or it couldn't be, right? To be quite honest with you, it doesn't have a ton of parking, but for downtown it does. And for this amount of square footage, it's actually not that bad. But you gotta realize, you gotta think to yourself, is this enough for what my business is? Right? So it's got its pluses and minuses. Let's do a quick cap rate here. So I'm gonna put, you guys wrote down this formula, okay? So I want you guys to figure out what the cap rate is, but I want to let you know that this is sort of a trick question. I was selling this property. The sandwich shop was leaving. So I was selling this property, and I'm asking you what the cap rate is, and why is this a trick question? because there's no real NOI, right? If I'm delivering a property to you vacant, how do I know, right? Property's going to be delivered vacant. However, I can make some speculations on what it could be. It's not as attractive to an investor, but if an investor calls me, I should know, hey, if you do lease this out, what should you be making on this property? But most likely, I'm going to be not selling it to an investor, but I'm going to be selling it to a what?
Business.
What do we call them?
Owner users.
Owner user. That's right. And just like a primary residence, the owner user is going to be willing to pay a little bit more usually for the property, right? If I'm going to live in a property, I'm usually willing to pay more for it than an investor does, right? Because I'm not buying this as an investment vehicle. I'm buying this because my business is going to live in it. My business makes me money, right? So usually you're going to get a little bit of higher offers from an owner user. I felt like that was probably going to be the best buyer for this. It was probably going to be an owner user for multiple reasons, and we'll talk about those in a second. But before we do that, let's talk about this math problem. So it's going to be a little bit trickier because we don't have an NOI, but this is the information I'm going to give you. The property is 1,800 square feet. Just, these aren't exact numbers, but 1,800 square feet. Average, let's say retail lease in downtown Orlando, let's say $27 a square foot. Okay? So we've done lease examples already, right? $27 a square foot per year, right? And the sale price is $750,000. Can anybody figure out what the cap rate would be? Assuming that this $27 a square foot is going to be net, right? That's what you're going to net as a landlord. It's a little bit tricky. I'm starting you with a trickier problem, but I want to see how you guys work it.
Your question, we're gonna find out what is.
What's the cap rate? What is the cap rate, right? Remember, this is the formula. Cap rate equals NOI divided by purchase price, right? So net income for the year divided by purchase price. You got it already, don't you? Okay, he's got it. Don't say nothing, Josh. I need at least 3 people total to have the answer, an answer. And I don't care if you got it wrong, by the way. This is class. We're family here. We're supposed to make mistakes. I just want you to try shit. So
27 square foot is like,
multiply 1,800 by $27 a square foot, and you tell me if that's a month. 1,800 times 27. What do you get?
48.
48,000. Do you think they're paying $48,000 a month?
No, nothing.
No. So what are they paying that over? Okay.
You look at the cap monthly or
No. Cap rate's done by year, so you don't really have to divide that by 12 actually. Okay, so we've got $48,000 of net income. You've got the price. So we got 3 people. Raise your hand if you got an answer. 1, 2, 3. Okay, answer? 6% exactly, or
6.648.
6.648?
Yeah.
So we had the $48,000. We had a $750 purchase price. There you go. You just did cap rate. And you just did cap rate on a building that didn't even have income. We just wanted to get a sense of what it could be. Because if I'm talking to if an investor says, hey, is this a good investment? It's about a 6.4 cap rate if you were to lease it out.
You see more people using cap rate or cash on cash return? I'm seeing more and more people doing cash on cash return.
We'll talk a little bit about that. But what she means is this. This is assuming that you buy this property cash. Okay? So this is a cool part. Then you get into a little bit heavier deal. But this 6.48 is assuming the buyer buys it cash. But what if they finance? What if instead of putting $750,000 out of their own pocket, they borrow $600,000 and only put $150 down? That's what she means by cash on cash. So what happens is when you do that, when you use leverage, cap rate goes up. Because you really only took $150,000 out of your pocket. You still have costs for the mortgage and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, there's no, I don't have a hard and fast formula for that. But I did ask my buddy Jason Glazer, and he He's like, it all depends, but it might bump it up about 2%. Okay? So these are the things that commercial investors think about. But I'm just giving them the easy cap rate deal because the more the better, right? So if they look at that and they get a 6.48 and a savvy investor says, shit, I'm going to finance most of that, it's going to be more like an 8 for me. It's good. It's a good deal. Okay? Great job, guys, by the way. So here's a quick quiz. What is something that will vary based on the building use and is usually calculated based on every 1,000 square foot of building size? What is something that will vary based on the building's use and is usually calculated based on every 1,000 square feet? And I'll give you a hint. It can often be the deciding factor on whether somebody buys your property or not. Okay? It's calculated by every 1,000 square foot of the building. Okay? And it actually varies by code depending on what the building is used for, right? So if a building is used for industrial versus retail, there will be different requirements for this one thing. What is it? She says water. The use of it, so it'll depend on the use. So let me ask you this. What's different between a property that's retail, right? So a shopping thing, and an industrial property where you produce stuff there, right? The activity is different, right? Like you don't get as much activity at an industrial property as you would at a retail property where you've got people coming in and out of there. So what changes? What needs to happen at this retail property that's different than that industrial property? Huh?
Yeah, the traffic, the amount of people.
Which means I need what? I need more what?
Retail.
Say it again? No? I thought you said it. She was close. I'll give you another hint. What is an issue in our building when we have a big sales meeting?
Space. Space.
What kind of space?
Parking?
Parking!
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Parking! It matters depending on what use. If I have a retail shop, I need to know that I have enough spaces to get what it, and there's different requirements. So there might be for retail, they might require you to say, what's a typical retail per 1,000 square foot? 3 point something or, per 1,000 square feet as far as parking or, yeah, the ratio. Yeah, 3.5, 4 per 1,000 square feet, right? So if it was 4 and I had 4,000 square feet, right? So 4 times 4, I have to have 16 spots for that. That's a requirement the city might have for what I'm doing, okay? Just a pro tip, okay? What are the pluses of this property? We talked a little bit about location, high visibility, high traffic count. These are things that you're gonna wanna learn before you market the property. So I know what makes my property sexy, right? Like, this is why I can price it the way I wanna price it, because I'm giving you the highest traffic corner in downtown Orlando. Access, maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. We'll talk about that in a second, because guess what the issue is here? Who knows this intersection very well? There you go. This intersection is a little tricky because there's no curb cut on the Colonial side. The only way you can get into this property is on this one-way street. You can't get into this property coming this way. Okay? Because this is a one-way street. So the only way you can get in is you're going to make a left from here and then go into here. Or you're making a right from here and go into here, but there's no flow this way. So that could be good, could be bad. It's not very good. Cool thing was it's also an iconic location and has history. People knew the place. Mama B's was a kind of a staple of downtown, so that was good. Here are the challenges. Parking, maybe, but as I told you, I think this one had about 18 spaces, which is actually not bad for an 1,800 square foot building, right? So it was actually pretty good parking, okay? But it is a tight parking lot there. And one thing too, that a lot of people will ask, and the reason I put that McDonald's there, what does McDonald's have that's very important to McDonald's business? Drive-through. So a lot of times you'll get somebody, hey, can I have a drive-through there? Well, in this particular case, can I have a drive-through? No. So I'm kind of asked out on that, right? I'm not gonna be able to put a Starbucks probably in there when it comes to that property, okay? So what are the pluses? Location, high visibility, access, maybe, iconic location. And what are the challenges? Parking, maybe. Size of the building, it's a small building, right? So it's a small building. And with the parking too, a lot of the questions I got is, can we build up? Right? Can I build up? Can I put more stories on this building? Well, you can and you can't, because there's only so much parking available, right? And I have a parking ratio that I must meet. So you might have been able to get a second story on there, but maybe that's it. Okay? Access one-way street, no room for expansion. So I don't know if you noticed it, but did you notice that they got built around? Right? Do you think that this Marriott offered them money for the property?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think they took it? Nope. What'd they do? I'll just fucking build around you. What's the problem now? I don't got room for expansion. Okay? Where have we seen this happen before? People do this. They get greedy. Okay? Have you guys ever seen the church next to the Orlando City Soccer Stadium? There's a little church, if you've ever driven by there, that's all been built around Orlando City Soccer. You know what? They got offered money, pretty good freaking money for that. But they said no because they wanted to get richer than they were. So here's the article in 2013, the church leaders did offer to sell the land for $35 million. The price the city paid for part of the wealthier Methodist church down the road. They later slashed the price to $15 million, but the city refused to spend more than $4 million on a parcel valued at $700,000. The city was offering $4 million, and it was valued at $700,000. They said no, and they got built around. So don't do that shit. Okay. So pro tip. Pro tip, real quick. Expect the unexpected. Just like residential deals. Look, guys. You know, things get messy. Things are going to pop up. I put this sign up here because this is another little thing that you might have not thought about, but some properties come with signage, okay? It means little billboards and things like that, and those have requirements, okay? And sometimes the places where you're selling don't no longer allow signage like that, okay? So if it transfers ownership, they might tell you, the city might be like, we're done with billboards on Colonial. So you're not gonna be able to use that. So that's something that you're gonna wanna just be cognizant about if you have signage. And some other pieces of property, by the way, that you see those big billboards, like the clear channels and stuff like that, you can actually make separate income on the billboard on that property. So that's something else to think about, okay? You can be getting an extra X amount of grand a year just from leasing the billboard space, right? So anyway, what had happened to me on this deal? Real awesome thing happened, right? So I went through this deal. I was dealing with this property probably for about a year. And then I finally had it under contract and I was going through it, and I get about 2 weeks from closing, and I get a call from title, or from the lawyer that's handling it. And he says, hey, did you know you have a $200,000 code enforcement lien on this property? So they had been improperly putting, like, using the lettering and things on their sign. They just haven't been following code, and they've owned it since the 70s. So they haven't been in code for many years, and they never did anything about it. So the city has a code enforcement lien on this. This is like 2 weeks from closing. I've been working on this for a year, and they're telling me now that I've got a $200,000 code enforcement lien. Okay, here's the beautiful part about this. Because in one of the deals I'll talk to you about in a little bit, I had started making connections at the city of Orlando. I knew the guy who handled code enforcement liens. So I emailed this guy, and I said, Mike, I need your help on this, man. I was like, I got a $200,000 code enforcement lien. What can you do for me? And because I built a good relationship with him, you know what he said? Don't worry about it. We'll sign off on it. Why did they do that? Because they were sick of dealing with these asshole owners, and they rather get a new owner in there to do the things that they want them to do, and they knew that they're going to blow up my deal. You're going to blow up my deal if you don't.
Any deal, really.
Any deal, really.
Yeah.
But don't get it twisted. I think I absolutely got lucky. I think maybe even because Mama B's had been a very historic part of downtown, I thought they probably decided, hey, this is going to be bad publicity anyway. We want new owners in there. And they signed it off on it. So it worked out. Okay. I also sold the other Mama B's that's on South Orange by Orlando Health. This is Orlando Health. So if we're looking at areas again, I'm looking at this and saying, what could this be? I'm delivering it vacant. This could be redeveloped into something else. Well, if you have a hospital next door, couldn't this could potentially be a medical office? It could be, or it could be a restaurant again. I mean, you have clientele there. You have high traffic. I'm on another hard corner. Okay, the parking situation was actually worse at this place. It looks better, but it was actually worse at this place. But it's a good location. That's what it looked like. You guys probably driven by there a lot. It was going to be a Foxtail Coffee, but that I think went down the tubes, and now they're going to put something else in there. I don't know. They won't tell us what it is. This was the sign that we put together, 0.34 acres. I had the zoning on there, what it was, development opportunity. And then more unexpected happened. So once again, worked on this for over a year. I'm under contract for this thing. I'm excited. Reputable company. And what did I say happens when you see something like this? If I was selling a property that was a gas station, what was the thing that I told you that you probably have to look into? Environmental. Well, before this was a sub shop, I did not know this when I took the listing. Before it was a sub shop, it was a gas station. Back in like the early 70s or whatever. So through this process, they do their phase 1 and they get concerned because there are still some gas tanks that are buried under this property. Okay. Now it's been a sub shop for freaking 40 years, but here's this problem popping up. So sure enough, they went and did a phase 2 and they found more contamination and we had to work. So I had the same thing. I had to get good enough to be dangerous, right? Like they literally sent me this environmental report. I had to look through there. There was terms in there. I learned terms like natural attenuation levels and all sorts of shit I'd never heard about. And I was just like reading the report. Okay, what's this about? Whatever, because they had me get on the phone with their environmental lawyer and the buyers and everybody together. So I'm on a conference call and I have to be semi-educated about what we're looking at, or these guys are going to take me to the cleaners. They're going to tell me, I'll pay you $100,000 less. Okay. And that's how I learned a shit ton about environmentals through that process. But luckily we worked it out. I fought back and forth and I only adjusted the price about $25,000. So I sold the one on the corner for $750 and I sold this one for $725. So it wasn't bad. But these are the things I'm telling you in advance that I found out on the fly, and now you guys know, right? Here's another good story. And by the way, I always tell you the backstory. But the 2 Mama B's places were referrals, by the way. Gil knows a guy that sells just businesses, doesn't sell real estate. So these people Mama B's people say, I want to sell my business. And he says, well, your business ain't worth shit. You might as well sell your real estate. Okay? So he went to Gil. Gil's like, oh, you're doing commercial, Bob? You handle it. Never done a restaurant in my life. Never done any of that. And I'm just like, I got to figure this thing out. And it got done, right? So no different than what you guys can do, okay? This is a great story. This is a big industrial property. It's actually currently for sale, right? But I always like to tell the story of how we came across this story. So this was a simple, little tour that Gil and I took. So before Gil and I officially became business partners, we kind of knew we wanted to do business together, but we didn't know like what we were going to do. We didn't know what we were going to do, open up a brokerage or do anything like that. We're just like, well, why don't we start with maybe some investment properties, right? So he calls me up one day, says, hey, Bobby, I found this investment property in Paramore. It's a little quadruplex for $140,000. Let's go look at it. I said, great. So we drive by, we're driving through Paramore. And as we're driving through, I'm seeing all this development. Right? So we knew about Creative Village, which is a UCF downtown campus. We knew that was happening, but then I'm seeing like another 30 acres that were cleared and they're moving dirt and things are happening. And we're like, what development is this? We drive up to a sign that says Orange County Public Schools. I'm like, okay. And then I drove around the corner. There's something else going on. There's this and that going on. The Orlando City Soccer Stadium was in the process of being built. It wasn't done yet. And Gil's like, something's going on here. So he goes, let's talk to an agent that I'm very familiar with in the neighborhood. Let's talk to her and see what's going on. Literally went in there, sat down, and Gil's like, what's going on in Paramore? And tell me what the best deal is out here. And she's like, well, first of all, there's massive development going on out here. She's been in that area 25 years. I love her. She's like a little OG. You might know her. You know Ida Martin? Ida Martin. She's Midtown Realty. She's She's right there. She's right across. This is her. This is her office. Right. Anyway, she's been in Paramore. She's done all the major land assemblies in Paramore. She did City View. She did the land assembly for Amway Arena, all that. Land assembly just means she's the person that went door to door in the hood and said, you're selling. Because we have to get all these properties to sell at once or we can't do the development, right? So she's an OG, like she's the real deal. So we say, hey, Ida, what's the best deal out here? And she pointed to this property across the street. She's like, that's the best deal out there. And we went and looked at it, and Gil and I immediately were like, wow, like this is a dope property. This is an amazing property. We had the same ideas. So we're like, well, how much are they selling it for? She's like, 1.4 million. But she's like, but there's a contract on it right now. But she's like, but they're coming to the end of their due diligence. They got about 10 days left on due diligence. And she goes, I don't think they're going to go through with it. I think they're going to back out. And literally, and I was like, you know, it was like great information. Gil goes, we want to put a contract on it. I was like, okay. And I was like, and she's like, really? He's like, yeah, Bobby's going to draw it up today. He'll have it to you today. And I'm like, cool. And then I like walked out. You know, he got out in the parking lot and I was like, hey man, that's a pretty aggressive move there. He's like, yeah, I know. I was like, well, just one thing. Where are we going to get $1.4 million? He's like, we'll figure it out. So we went on this whole 5-month campaign to raise this money to buy this property, just on a complete whim, right? Because we just believed in what it could be, right? It was 2 acres, 45,000 square feet. These are all that. And as you can see, we've actually turned it into like a makeshift arts district, kind of like Wynwood. That was our vision, to do like an arts district like you would see in Wynwood in Miami and things like that. But this is what we saw that was going on in the area. And this is a good thing for you to understand, because when you're doing commercial real estate, it's important to know whether you're in a developing area. What's going on around you that might make this attractive? And these are the things that we saw. Well, here's the Amway Arena. The Amway, through our research, we found out the Amway Arena had bought the police station, which is now cleared. You just see a big tract of land there. And that the Magic were going to be building a $100 million entertainment complex. Hotel, conference space, restaurants. Kind of, have you guys ever seen like LA Live? Like in Los Angeles, like right next to that's what they're going to be building there. So we're like, holy crap, this is coming. And it is coming. This is like, we're within 12 months of this breaking ground right now. Okay. But this was 3 years ago that we knew this was coming. Right. So there's that. The soccer, this is the Amway Arena now. This is the entertainment thing that they're going to be building, breaking ground here very soon. They were still in the process of, finishing the soccer stadium, which is right there. You had the Creative Village downtown UCF campus. This was the public school that they built, the K-8 school that we saw that was like cleared, and we were like, what the heck is that? Here's a fire station and here's a new police station, and there was our property. So we just felt like, wow, man, we're in the path of progress. Like this whole, the only place that downtown can spread to is really here or south downtown. Because Mills 50 area is already kind of done, right? You can't do a ton. They're not going to be building skyscrapers probably in the Mills 50 area, okay? South downtown has a lot of potential. But Paramore is kind of right there. And look at all this stuff happening, $3 billion worth of development. So that's what we saw. This was the building. This is what we did to raise the money. We actually got people on bus tours and we took them all around. Like literally we put a contract on it without any money and we had to raise this money. So me and Gil were like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to tour investors around this property and show them what we see. Okay, this was the first day we did it, and this was the route we took. This was our office here, and we took them all around. We showed them all the developments, and then we would end up at our property and give them this tour. We had like whatever. Probably over the 5 months we did it, we probably took about 80 to 90 investors out there, and 0 of them invested. They just couldn't see, we were trying to sell a vision, right? So that's what happens when you deal with commercial people. They're doing math problems, and if the math doesn't work, good investors don't do visions. Only people with a shit ton of money that like visions do vision projects. But what's wrong with this vacant warehouse property? What's it not producing? Revenue. And the buildings needed work. These are not things we thought about. We were just like, let's do it, right?
What were you thinking about putting? Like the ideas.
The ideas was event space, galleries, breweries, coffee shops, small shops. The zoning was there for it. That general industrial zoning will allow it. The city's dying for something to happen here, but it's not necessarily the highest and best use for this property, right? Like the really highest and best use at some point is to clear all those buildings out and build up, which you can do, but it takes a shit ton of money, which lowers my buyer pool to this, right? And it's still a developing neighborhood. Although we know all these things are happening, the hood is the hood, right? So you have to have a little bit of vision to look forward and say, yeah, I know it's hood right now, but once they finish UCF and whatever the case may be.
Yeah,
Well,
it's nice to have something like Lake Nona, like Boxy Park out there. Have something like that.
exactly. But do you put a Boxy Park in Paramount? I don't think
No,
so.
it's
But right, but you could put something more artsy there, which is what we wanted to do, something a little bit more street,
like Miami.
like Miami Windward,
Yeah.
right? And that's the vision that we pitched to everybody. Everybody loved it. They just didn't spend any money on it. So real quick, just the end of that story, we came down to about our last month. We were about to lose our deposit. The second time we were about to lose our deposit. And we were finally getting desperate. I was desperate from the beginning. Gil was like really calm for some fucking reason. Because that's Gil Ramos, my partner. He just, the things that might stress you out, Vivian, just don't stress him out. They're just whatever, He's like, we'll find it, don't worry. So finally, I came in one day to the office. We were about to lose our, we had just basically gotten our second extension, and they're like, there are going to be no more extensions. So we were about to lose about 200 grand, gone. And it was the first time I walked into the office and I saw Gil stressed, and I was like, are you feeling urgency now? Like, do you see the problem that we're in? Okay, great. So he's like, dang it, I'm gonna make some calls. So he makes a call to some guy who was supposed to give us money early on. He said, look, you let me down. You said you were gonna give us money. You didn't give us money. You need to find me somebody with the freaking money. And he's like, okay. You call this guy. He has us call this guy named, I swear to God, his name is Dan Deal. Dan Deals. And he's like, hey, I'm gonna send you this guy, Dan Deals. He's like, I think he might be able to help you. I'm like, okay. So we go to Dan Deal. He's a private lender. Go to Dan Deal. Show him the whole thing. I have a pitch. I've been pitching this for 5 months. Like, I've never pitched something so fucking hard because I was going to lose all my money. I mean, I had my book. I was like, here we go. And Dan's like, well, here's the deal, guys. Bad news is I'm not going to invest in this property. I was like, this is not my type of deal. He's like, but I know one guy who probably would. And he's like, when do you want to meet him? And we're like, yesterday. Like, as soon as possible, dude. And he's like, okay. He goes, I can have you in his house. I can have you a meeting with you this afternoon, but you got to sign this piece of paper saying that you're going to pay me 2% finder's fee on this. And at this point, we're like, this was like $28,000, but we're like, whatever. Like, we'll pay it at closing. Let's just get this deal done. Sure enough, we're in this guy's living room. Later on that day, never met this guy in our life. I came in there ready to do my pitch. And he's like, hey, let me stop you right there. He goes, I know the exact property you're talking about. He's like, I was going to buy it about 2 years ago. I didn't do it. He's like, I should have bought it then because I would have gotten it cheaper. He's like, but you know what? I like you guys' passion. I like you guys' energy. He's like, I'm not going to let you lose your money. So he's like, we can do this 2 ways. He's like, I can become your partner and I'll buy it with you, or I'll lend you the money at like 12%. And Gil's like thinking about it. I'm like, Gil, there's no thinking about this. I'm not paying 12% on this money. Like, there's not happening. And then, so I was like, look, we want to be your partner. And he's like, all right, cool. We'll start the paperwork. We'll start stuff going. This was literally like 3-4 weeks before this thing's supposed to close that we found this guy. I shit you not. We drive away and Gil pulls the car over. He's like, hey man, I just want to talk to you real quick. He goes, what do you think about this guy? I go, what do I think about this guy? I was like, Gil, he's the only guy. Like, there's no thinking about it. He's like, oh, no, I just want to get your take on it. I'm like, there is no take. I'm like, this guy's going to give us the money. And sure enough, we closed on it. We own it now. We're selling it now. We got it on the market for $4.5 million. Whether it sells for that or not, doesn't matter. We pay 1.4. I mean, if you can just do the numbers and say we double, even if we sell for 3, I mean, we've doubled what we put into it because we bought in the path of growth. Okay. And we feel all day. I already got a verbal offer for 3.25, right? So we just don't want 3.25. But that's what happens when you buy in the path of growth. Okay. So let's talk about this corner. So once again, deals get deals. So we buy this property, and then this is the diagonal corner from that Westar property, this property here. So one day, and this is a pro tip, whenever you guys make friends with commercial agents, and I always ask them if they have any off-market deals, right? Is there any properties that are off the market right now that nobody knows about, right? Because a lot of times they'll trade off the market. They just don't put them on LoopNet. They won't put them on the MLS. They don't even have access to that. Most strict commercial brokers don't have access to the MLS because they just do commercial. Okay. So anyway, we had another commercial agent in the office, and I asked him. I said, Edward, do you have anything? And he says, yes, I got this property. It's right across the street from the one you guys are trying to buy right here. And he gave me this package months before we even closed on that property. So a buddy of mine from Miami, who's a commercial investor, I'm sitting down with him. He was actually the one who told me about Wynwood and thought, hey, this property you have there could be kind of like Wynwood. And he had told me, he's like, if you ever find a property in that area that's income producing, I'll look at it because I believe in what's going to happen in the area. But he goes, me and my investors can't buy vacant shit. Like we have to buy shit that makes money, right? So I said, okay, cool. So I went down to Miami, Wynwood. I'm at a brewery with him, and I was like, oh, you know what? I just remembered. There's a property across the way. It's a manufacturing facility, and it's income producing. It's got a lease on it, blah, blah, blah. And I had the package in my phone. I sent it to him. He goes, dude, that looks interesting. 60 days later, I closed one of my biggest deals, which was $2.25 million. The easiest deal I've ever done in my entire life. But I wouldn't have known about it if I wasn't already researching that area and what was happening in that area, right? So if you're looking at areas that are in the path of growth, you should see who else might want to sell their property or is in the market, because you can get those off-market leads and you'll be able to sell a property like that. I asked another commercial agent who had the for sale package already. He had emailed it to me. I had it I had the PDF of the package. It was for sale, but it wasn't marketed publicly, right? So it wasn't on LoopNet. It wasn't on Crexi. It wasn't on MLS. You just make connections. Make connections with other commercial agents. They have stuff like this.
So it wasn't listed under an agent.
No.
It was just like.
I went and asked a commercial agent by chance, do you have any off-market deals in the Paramore area? Because I got people looking in there. He sent me this package. That was a package from another agent that he had gotten it from.
Oh, and you had the buyer.
Yeah. And I had the buyer already. Huh?
Why would we leave it? Why would we not?
Well, put it this way. If you were running a business, would you want all your employees knowing you're selling it?
It's still income producing, it's still living.
Yeah, they have a lease in place. A lot of people don't want their shit out there. This is a business, right? They don't want all their tenants knowing that they're selling the building.
And the employees are going to leave.
You know, Mama Bees didn't even want me to put a fucking sign out front because she didn't want her employees to leave while I was selling the property.
Yeah.
So a lot of this stuff gets done under the radar. Not all of it. I'm just telling you that that's the reason that they would do
So
so.
they have to notify the employee that they sold the property? Not really.
Really? If they're gonna keep the business there, not really. I mean, it's their choice to sell. It would be nice. I think that it would be a good thing to do at some point. And they found out eventually, but she was actually closing the business down. That's a whole different story. They weren't gonna have a job after this thing closed down, you know? So let's do a quick cap rate, more math problems, guys, real quick. So you guys have written this down. So this will be a simpler one, okay? This property that I just showed you that sold to my buddy had a price of $2.25 million, had an NOI of about $150,000 a year. Okay, so what's the cap rate? I'm gonna let Erica, you answer me. I haven't heard enough from you.
Oh my God.
Nobody answers. But Erica. Nobody. There's two numbers. Okay. Here's the formula. NOI divided by purchase price. There's NOI, there's purchase price. What do you get?
Why all the sixes?
0.6. Did everybody get this?
Yeah.
Okay. See, most people are just scared to be wrong. She's scared to be wrong. That's a bad number. I get it. It's fine. But you got it, right? Okay. So real quick, I'll run through these quickly. This is an apartment complex I sold. This is on Primrose in Washington Street, about 13-unit apartment complex that I sold. How did I find it? Same thing, connection with another agent. The lady that sold us the West Star District, Ida Martin from Midtown Realty, I went back to her. Hey, if you ever have, because when I get an investor, see, this is what happens is you make great relationships, right? And you ask questions like, do you have any off-market deals, right? And when you find out people sell certain type of stuff, then I'll get an investor that'll say, hey, I'm looking for multifamily. If you ever find any apartment complexes in downtown, I would like to buy them cash. Okay, now I got an investor. So I start calling around to the people connections I know. I would call Vivian and say, Vivian, do you got anything? Right? I'm just calling around to see if there's something off market that I could find. Well, sure enough, Ida says, oh yeah, I got a 13-unit coming up, and she was selling it at like a ridiculous price. Like, she's one of the few agents I've ever met that doesn't overprice, that will sell something at a nice fair market price to make it attractive to an investor to buy. And so this 13-unit, I sold, the price was like $750,000, which is really freaking good for, this is Milk District in downtown. Yeah, it took me about 3 days to get a contract. All I did was send out an email. You know how I send the email? Like I said, I'm just a street level guy just trying to make things happen, right? So I needed a list of investors, right? And wholesalers, all wholesalers have is list of investors. I had a wholesaler send me a property and forgot to BCC his list. Okay, you ever forgot to BCC? You know what I mean? You know what I mean by that? So you can see everybody else's emails. So one time a wholesaler had done that and they forgot to BCC. So I ganked their list, right? And I just kept it. And so guess what? When this came up, I sent out one email and I ended up having like 3 contracts within like 5 hours. All these guys were looking. I'm not telling you have to do that. I'm just telling you that you got to get savvy sometimes. If you don't have an investor list, try to find a way to get one. Okay? So this was a very clean, simple sale. It's awesome, cash. This is what it looks like. You guys probably driven past it if you're downtown people. And then you guys might definitely have driven past this one. Okay? So I sold this one. So just to tell you again how I got this deal. I didn't do anything magical. You know what? How I got this deal? Through a Facebook post. Okay? Somebody posted this building. It's on Virginia. Okay? Virginia and Mills area. And they posted it on Facebook. And I got to give a shout out to my boy Aaron Luton. If you guys know who Aaron Luton is, he has Orlando branding agencies, very connected in the real estate community. He tagged me in the post, and the post said this: gonna be putting this on the market in like the next few days in case anybody has like some buyers for it. First thing I thought, oh, she hasn't put it on the market yet. It's off market. Okay. Then I started doing the numbers that you guys are about to do. There's 8 units. I started doing the numbers. I looked at the price. I figured out how much rents each unit was getting. I'm gonna give you a very simple problem in a second. It's not the exact numbers, but it gave me a sense, because I don't want to pitch shit either. The reason I'm showing you how to do the math is you don't want to start pitching 3% cap rates because they're not attractive to investors, right? Like, I don't want you to pitch a property that's not sexy, because then you'll look like the person who just pitches crappy properties, right? So I had to do the numbers on it. I saw the numbers, and so basically, this is the simple cap rate example I'm going to give you. So this one's a little bit harder, okay? So let's say it's 8 units, and these aren't the exact numbers. They're actually getting below $1,000 in rents, okay? But I felt like if those units were fixed up, they could easily get like $1,100 in rents. So what kind of opportunity is that based on the terms that I taught you? If I look at something and say, well, they're getting about $700, $800 in rents, but I think they're underpriced. If somebody fixes this up, makes it look nice, they can re-rent these properties for $1,100 a month. What kind of opportunity is that? No, that's not an improvement. No. If I'm looking at it as an investor, there was a term that I told you. It's a blank opportunity. It's a value add opportunity. It's a value add opportunity. I'm looking at it and saying, okay, it's not getting a crazy return right now, but it's getting a decent return. But hey, I know that part of downtown. That's a popular part of downtown. You're telling me they're renting this shit out for $800 a month on a 2-1 or whatever they were doing? I was like, they could easily get $1,100. knowing the way things rent downtown. So I thought, man, this is a value add opportunity. Now I'm giving you simple numbers so you can do the calculations. So what I'm going to give you is, I'm telling you there's 8 units and they each make $1,000 per month. Okay. Let's assume that that's clear net income. Okay. That there's no expenses in there. Okay. Just to keep the math problem simple. Okay. The price is $1.1 million. So what is the cap rate? So first somebody tell me what's the NOI?
8.72.
No? NOI, net operating income. 96,000.
Yeah, 96. Okay.
And you guys are becoming,
Yes.
you just like spit that out like it was nobody's business. She's absolutely right. NOI is 96,000. Why? Because it's making $8,000 a month. I multiplied it by 12, and I'm assuming it's not realistic. I'm gonna just let you know on this apartment complexes, I know a lot of investors that will cut that income in half to do their calculations because there's gonna be a maintenance, property management, all sorts of stuff. I just wanted to give you a simple example, okay? Let's just say 96,000. The price was 1.1 million. So what was the cap rate?
Divide 8.72.
8.72. That's it, guys. You're doing commercial.
Yeah.
That's a commercial deal.
Yes.
It's just 8 units. What's the difference? 4 units is residential, 8 units is commercial. Okay, same shit. I gotta figure out what kind of income it's getting and how attractive it's gonna be. You're not selling this for somebody to get into it. You're selling this for the money that it produces, and that's what makes commercial a little bit different. The price is more based in this particular case, not on what other 8-unit apartment complexes have sold in the area. You might not even find a comparable for this in that area. What you will find is how much income does it get and how much an investor is going to get cap rate. I can tell you that in general, if you get anything that's an 8 cap, that's pretty sexy. My buddy bought that manufacturing facility for about a 6.5 cap, but like Mavis said, he was going to finance it and felt, hey, I'm only really going to put down this much cash. So he felt like, hey, I can get this up to more like an 8% cap. But if I get anything at an 8% cap rate, it's pretty sexy, especially in commercial. Like that's a pretty strong return. I know I can sell that. That's why when I did the numbers on this, I was like, hey, this ain't bad.
That's return per year. How much you're gonna make on each property.
That's right. You're spending 1.1 million, and you're getting back $96,000 a year. There's your cap. It's not ain't bad.
8 10 years.
That's right. And there's probably going to be rent increases every year, right? So you're gonna.
And then most investments you put in the bank.
That's right. Well, the bank is nothing.
So no, I mean different investment.
Of course.
mutual funds,
CDs,
blah, blah, blah.
all that stuff. Why do you think people invest in real estate? Right? But you got to know what you're doing, right? There's still some risk in real estate. Some of those are way safer, but they pay way lower. You know, lower risk, lower return.
Also, you have more work to do.
Right. And you got to know what you're doing. If you ever did something like this as an investor, I would absolutely say, and if they've never done something like this, to actually hire a property manager, not try to manage the property themselves. They're rookies right now. You know, if you want to manage your own properties down the road after you get some experience, cool. But if not, hire somebody. It's worth taking. I'll take a 7% cap to sleep at night. You
Then
know,
hire a property manager. You take.
right? It's an expense, right? If I have a bigger expense, my NOI goes down. Right? That's okay as long as the cap rate's still going to be good.
And there's commercial property manager.
Absolutely. Well, with this, you can use our property management person. They'll do this. Yeah. If it's apartments, you know, I think maybe his cap might be 20 to 50, like what he'll be willing to manage. But Nick Guadagnino with Specialized will manage his property. It's 8 units. What's the difference? It's managing residential, right? Matter of fact, it's easier. He manages all one building, you know. So that's the back of the building. Okay, so very important if you want to take a picture of this, or if you guys are online right now. I wrote this down because a lot of times you guys will say, hey, I've got this commercial property. What do you think? And then you guys have like no other information. It's just like not enough information. You got to ask some questions, right? Up front so you can give me a good picture or so you can get a good picture. Okay, so here's what we got. Look, just like you would residential. If somebody says I want to buy a property, what are you going to ask them? Like if I'm going to buy a property, sir, Jose, a residential property. Hey, Jose, I want to buy a house. What's your next question? If I just say, hey, I want you to help me buy a house.
Yeah, how about can we do the possible, credit review with your pre-approval thing?
Right? Am I qualified to buy this thing? Like, what's my budget? Okay. What else would you ask me? I just said I want to buy a house. What did you ask me?
What is the
What's my location? How big is the property? Am I going to invest or am I going to be an owner user? Right? It's no different. So don't have somebody tell you, hey, I got a commercial property I want you to help me on, and then walk away from that conversation without getting some of these basic questions. Okay, so question, are you looking to lease or are you looking to buy? Okay, are you looking to lease a place or looking to buy? Hey, I need help with a commercial space. Okay, so you have a business, great. Are you looking to lease a property or looking to buy a property? No, I'll probably lease for right now. Okay, good, now I know where we're going. Okay, are you buying the property for investment or are you looking to put your own business in the property? So you're an investor or you're an owner user. What are you looking for? Okay, so if they do have a business, what kind of business do you have? Right, it's important to know what they do. Not all properties are zoned for doing what these people do. You need to know what kind of business do you have? Oh, well, I have a wedding shop and whatever. Okay, so you're looking more for a retail space, right? People come in and try on dresses and pick out flowers and stuff. Okay, cool, it's good to know. Or they might tell you, hey, I got I'm looking for an auto body place, or I'm looking for a place to have a brewery. Well, breweries are considered manufacturing. So, you're probably going to be in an industrial, if you're going to actually produce the beer there. Okay. So these are the things that you want to know. And you don't have to know all the answers then, but you got to know how to ask the right questions. What location are you looking for and why? Can't be just like a regular house seller tells you, I just want to buy in Orlando. No, you don't. No, you don't. You want to be a certain place. We got to dig down in those questions. So what's important to you? Okay, what do you want to be close to? Do you need access to highways? Do you want a high traffic location like that Mama B's, right? Which, by the way, is now a Magic Pet. It's a pet store. How many square feet do you need? How big is the place? You'd ask somebody that if they were buying a house. Like, how big is the house? How many beds? How many beds? Hey, how big is the place? How many square feet do you need? Do you need office space? Sometimes if somebody gets an industrial property, they say, hey, I need a 10,000 square foot warehouse. You might ask them, but do you also need any offices? Yeah, I'd love to have at least a couple thousand square feet of offices so I can do some intake there, but in the back, I need this. Okay, you need an industrial property. So are there any special requirements the building has to have? Like these, right? These bay doors. I mean, if somebody has stuff they're moving in and out, they're gonna need things like this. They might tell you, I need to, and if they say, I need bay doors, how much do they need to clear, right? Because maybe they have big ass trucks,
access?
right? So maybe they need a dock high bay door, right? Because this is not a dock high, right? The dock highs are the ones that have like the little level up and the big trucks can pull into them, right? So these are just, and you don't have to remember all that. Just say, hey, is there any special requirements you need? Well, what if it's a CrossFit gym or something like that? They might tell you that ceilings have to be at least 22 feet high. So now all these industrial properties you've been looking for, or warehouses, you're like, okay, half of these don't work because the ceiling height is not high enough for what they're trying to do. Okay, so ask them what they need, anything special. Parking. How many spaces do you need? I got a little office in South Downtown for sale right now. And I can tell you, I think one of the main challenges, besides the fact it's like one of those old kind of historical home looking offices, is it only has 6 dedicated parking spaces. Okay, so I'm only going to be able to get a certain type of buyer for that, right? Somebody who has a small law firm or a small CPA firm or maybe a little creative firm, not somebody who's got 10 cars coming in and out or 20 cars coming in and out at any given moment. They're going to look at my space and be like, it's not working. Like, I have 6 employees already. There's my 6 spots. So where are my customers going to park? So these are important things. Okay. What is your budget for a lease or to purchase? I don't know how many times you guys say, hey, I got some clients, they want to lease a space. I'm like, okay, cool. How much space they need? I don't know. Well, what's their budget? What can they pay every month? I don't know that. Okay. Yeah, we need to ask all of these questions before we can make a move and see if we can help these people. Some deals might not be worth doing, you know, or you might want to refer some of these deals. Okay. If you're starting off, I can tell you right now, I started off and I wanted to learn the game, so I took whatever because I just wanted to learn it. I did like 1,000 square foot lease. I might have made 140 bucks on the thing, right? Like it was fine because I had never done a lease like that, and I felt like at least I get to go through the process because I just want to learn. Okay. And then here's a pro tip. This happened to me not too long ago, and I was like, why didn't I do this? Okay, so if you have somebody who is an owner user, owns a business, I would highly suggest that you meet them at their business and take a look at what their space currently looks like. If you want to get a good sense of what they need, you got to see their business, right? So I did that. I have this big government contractor that was looking to do stuff, and then I realized I started looking for him prior to actually going to his current business. And when I went there, I was like, oh, I got a way clearer picture of what this guy really wants from visiting the business. So if you have a business already, let me go see it. I'd like to meet you at your business first. And doesn't that make you look like a great agent too? If you say, hey, before we get started, I'd actually like to meet you for the first time at the business, and I want you to give me a tour and the things that you like about what you have and the things that you don't like and the things that you need. And that way I can get a great picture. And I just have a list of these questions ready. Dude, a lot of people, you'd be surprised, you know, a lot of commercial agents only work with like certain people, and there's a lot of people that need commercial help that don't get it. They really don't. There's small business owners right now that need your help because a lot of people don't want to deal with them. They want to go work on this big deal or that big deal, or they're just, the deals are beneath them. And there's all this business out there. They're just waiting for you guys to put your energy behind it. Real quick, this is my buddy Jason Glazer. You'll probably see him. I did a commercial crushers with him not too long ago. Really, really sharp guy, really, really good guy, and a guy that I lean on a lot for my for commercial questions and stuff. Just want to let you know, some of his background because I asked him to give you guys some tips on how to become a good commercial agent. And so just so you know, his company owns about 700,000 of commercials. That's not right. 700,000. I think it has 700,000 square feet. They manage 1.6 million square feet of commercial space. They have built 5 buildings from the ground up. They currently lease 1 million square feet of space. If you guys remember this building on Mills 50, Copytronics building, they bought that. Now it's a Kiddie Academy daycare. They just built it, redeveloped it, sold it, done, right? They own the Wells Fargo building on Mills 50 as well, in the corner of Fairbanks and Mills. A lot of good stuff. They own some more stuff in Winter Park, and he's the guy that owns that manufacturing facility that I sold across the street from that property they bought, okay? So here's his tips for you, okay? Real quick. First of all, build your network. I already talked to you about that a couple times. He says knowledge means nothing if you don't have leads or clients. Treat people like you will do business with them again because you will, okay? So build relationships. Successful business owners, doesn't matter. The same way I teach you guys in residential. Your product is people, not real estate. They will lead you to business. Business owners know other business owners. Wealthy people know other wealthy people, okay? Doctors know other doctors that need medical offices. This is the way the world works, right? Build your network, treat people right, build great relationships. Number 2, he suggests you specialize. Now, some of you guys are just learning, so you can see that I'm kind of all over the place when it comes to my deals, right? I've kind of done a little bit of everything. That's kind of my personality. But I see the value in specialization because you do become really great at one thing. And if you find something you really like and it's profitable, then it would be great to become a master at that one thing, okay? Could be multifamily, it could be industrial properties, it could be working with investors looking for, profitable office buildings. I don't know what it's gonna be. Right now, you're probably still trying to get your feet under you, so just work deals, okay? And then know your numbers. Learn the cost of basic repair items such as roof, AC, paving, painting. Most items should be known by a cost per square foot. Know and study market rents, vacancy rents, and read articles on businesses and companies that are expanding. Why would you do that? Why would you be interested in companies that are expanding? They need more space. They need more space. So literally, it's you know, you can pound the pavement with this stuff. You can actually find the owners of businesses and say, hey, it looks like you guys are doing well, expanding. Are you guys looking for any new locations?
Now, in the sense that there are a lot of companies that are downsizing because of COVID, so they have to space, to do maybe going in and releasing their spaces or
Yeah.
selling some of that property.
Yeah, of course. So you're going to have people that own things and realize they don't need the space anymore and they want to get rid of it. So that's why I'm telling you, the next couple of years, there's going to be a lot of shifts, I think, happening in commercial. You're going to get people that own space that now the space is not as profitable. So an investor wants to swoop in, grab it at a low price and do something different with it. You're going to get companies that are downsizing. So maybe it's not expansion. Maybe it's, hey, this space is way too big for me. I'm looking to move to a smaller space, or I'm looking to buy a smaller space, but there's still money in it, right? So you were in 10,000 square feet. Now you only need 5,000. Now you can buy a building with 5,000 square feet and own it, you know? So there's going to be opportunities to do all of that. And, you know, like you said, know your numbers. You're going to learn stuff like that over time. You know, like for instance, the West Art District, you know, it's about 45,000 square feet of space, right? And I remember walking in with Jason and he's like, look, and I was like, give me some roundabout. Like if I were to look at this building and say, what do I need to bring it at least up to code, right? Putting in AC systems, this and that, just not all the fancy build out. I'm not talking about design build out. I'm talking about, let's get this thing functional. What would it be? And he's like, I think because of his experience, he's like, I think it'd be about $40 a square foot. So that was just like a roundabout thing. Like, hey, this building needs all this work. Like it basically needs everything. It needs to be rewired, replumbed, AC. He's like, I think you're looking at about $40 a square foot. So do that math on 45,000 square feet. That's why we haven't done anything with West Art, because we haven't been able to get our partner to invest that kind of money. So what's 45,000 times 40? It's about 2 million. So in order for just to get the buildings we have on that property to be functional and up to code, prior to anybody putting build out to whatever suits there, we're $2 million in. So that's a calculation that we didn't really like make at the time, but we also knew we were buying the land, right? Like we kind of land banked this thing, right? So we said, hey, look, even if we don't develop this, if we don't find a developer that wants to do what we want to do, we know we bought it right? We know that 2 acres in downtown Orlando at 1.4 million ain't bad, right? Next to the Orlando City Soccer Stadium. Like there's going to be some value in this. Okay. So, any questions?
Hey, what do you think about the retail spaces since all JCPenney's and the malls are closing? Is that good opportunity for you?
Yeah, but you need some big players who are going to buy that. So for instance, Fashion Square Mall. Fashion Square, you guys are familiar with Fashion Square Mall?
It's going out.
Huh?
Is it out already?
It's been bought already. So there's a company called Unicorp that bought that property, okay? And they're just waiting to deal with the bank, renegotiate some stuff with the bank, but they've already bought it. You've already seen they actually redeveloped the corner there on McGuire and Colonial. They got a great, I was just there, Floor and Decor. They got a Panera, looks really nice. But the rest of the mall, the JCPenney, all that, it's going to be done. They're going to never make that into what they call now. So now things are shifting. Malls aren't as popular anymore. What they have now is they're doing what they call lifestyle centers. So they're actually planning to have a Live Nation venue there for concerts. You know, it'll be more like a almost like a Point Orlando. They'll still have some like shops and things and stores, but that regular retail, it's more about an experience. It's more about an experience. So that's what's going to happen to a lot of those places. So you're going to see a lot of that stuff. But you know, these aren't small money. I mean, you know, you got to know some people with some legit cash to buy a mall, right? Even if the mall is empty. Yeah, some guy named G, right? So I'll leave you guys with this real quick. You guys know that it's one of my favorite phrases. You don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. So Don't be scared of commercial, guys. You guys now know, just so you know, just because somebody's been in commercial doesn't mean they know a ton of stuff. Same thing in real estate. Some of you guys get so intimidated because you just started in residential real estate. And I literally know people who've been in it 5 or 10 years and are not bright. They have not taken the time to become a true professional, and you'll be surprised. So don't feel this way. You guys right now, you guys definitely from just this class, residential agents, I believe you know about more than 95% of all residential agents by spending 2 hours with me, okay? I'm telling you. Trust me, I'm out there in the world. I see it. You guys know enough now. You're doing the math. You're shouting out NOIs. That's it. Now it's time for you to start looking at it. Now you can look at things differently. Like, oh, I know how to kind of look at this opportunity now. Is this a good opportunity?